Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast, a show that examines all aspects of sexuality, from physical to emotional to spiritual. Join our hosts as they discuss age-old questions, common misconceptions, and the latest topics surrounding sex. They'll tackle topics about sexuality from the complicated to the hilarious and everything in between. GSMC Sex Podcast is your show for all of your questions about sex, even some you might not have thought of yet.
Thank you for listening to the GSMC Sex Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Gaelika Brown. Now, I am not a sex expert, but I do love me some Dr. Ruth. However, I am not Dr. Ruth. But I have spent some time on this earth, and I've experienced some things, and I've witnessed some things, and because I am an excellent listener, I've heard some things. I'm a student of human behavior, and I love to learn. I love to research topics and present what I have learned, which is what I do on this podcast. And of course, I'm going to give my 2 cents about the matter, but I will also include what experts have to say. Now, the nation is in an uproar right now. The death of George Floyd was just a tipping point. People of color are fed up, and some non-POC allies are upset too. As we speak, there are protests and riots happening all over this nation, and the world too. But what are we going to do? We're going to be talking about sex. And I will be talking about sex for the very last time on this podcast. I've officially covered all topics I was interested in and have covered some topics that creeped me out. So yeah, I'm fresh head of ideas. A friend suggested I do asexuality and non-binary. There is a character on the Showtime series Billions, and that character is the first non-binary character shown on American television. And my friend loves that character. Now, my music podcast I was hosting for the GSMC Music Network, I broke a story about Sam Smith coming out as non-binary and using the pronouns they, them, and theirs. This is a subject I am unfamiliar with. So yeah, I thought it would be fun to research. So here we go. Let's talk about sex. Let's first start with definitions. Quora.com, that's Quora, has this definition. Sexual orientation is who you're attracted to. Gender is who you are. So for me, my sexual orientation is heterosexual, and my gender is female. Now, asexual refers to someone who doesn't experience sexual attraction towards anyone. Non-binary refers to all gender identities that are not accurately described as just male or female. I don't know why someone is just outside randomly honking, but we're going to ignore that. So non-binary refers to all gender identities that are not accurately described as just male or female. And gender fluid is a non-binary identity. Now, that is a super clear definition. And Healthline.com says, if someone tells you they're non-binary, it's always important to ask what being non-binary means to them. Some people who are non-binary experience gender as both male and female, and others experience their gender as neither male nor female. Non-binary can also be used as an umbrella term, encompassing many gender identities that don't fit into the male-female binary. The University of Massachusetts defines asexual as aces or asexual people. Individuals who generally do not experience sexual attraction to others of any gender. Some do experience romantic attractions. Asexuality differs from celibacy in that celibates have a sexual attraction but choose to abstain from sex. Healthline.com has an article entitled, "What Does It Mean to Be Asexual?" Some asexual people don't experience any sexual attraction. That doesn't mean that they can't experience other forms of attraction, though. Aside from sexual attraction, you can also experience romantic attraction, desiring a romantic relationship with someone, aesthetic attraction, being attracted to someone based on how they look, sensual or physical attraction, wanting to touch, hold, or cuddle someone, platonic attraction, wanting to be friends with someone, emotional attraction, wanting an emotional connection with someone. Those are interesting. I mean, I'm trying to, like, what exactly is a romantic relationship, though? Because to me, a romantic relationship encompasses that, or a romantic attraction encompasses the emotional attraction, the wanting an emotional connection with someone. If you want to be romantic with someone, you want to emotionally connect to them. So I would think that they're a one and one. I don't, because I definitely experience romantic attraction as well as aesthetic, as well as sensual and physical, as well as platonic, but that's really for more so for my friends. There's definitely been a lot of women in my life where I'm like, I want to be friends with them. But everything else, when it comes to, I guess, my heterosexual identity and being attracted to someone of the opposite sex and wanting to engage in any sort of relationship with them, then it's going to encompass the romantic, the sensual, the emotional, as well as the platonic. I want to be friends with you too. So, but it's interesting that breakdown of attractions. So, going further on into this article, it says it's possible for asexual people to experience all of these forms of attraction. Some people might only experience sexual attraction in very limited circumstances. For example, someone who is demisexual, which some say falls under the asexual umbrella, experiences sexual attraction only when they have a deep connection to a person. In other words, they might only feel sexually attracted to people who have deep romantic relationships with, or who they have deep romantic relationships with. But how do you develop a deep romantic relationship with someone without having that sexual attraction? That's what I'm trying to understand. Because I can understand like platonic, right? You're getting to know someone, you're friends with them, and the more you get to know them, then they might become attractive to you, right? So then you might all of a sudden get that aesthetic attraction because now it's like, as I'm getting to know them, I never really pay attention to their eyes. Like they have such beautiful eyes. Or I love their lips or something. So then as you're getting to know them platonically, you're now aesthetically seeing them for the first time. And then at the same time, as you're getting to know them platonically, you could also, because now you're starting to aesthetically be attracted to them, to then want to touch or hold or cuddle them. So then that turns into the sensual or physical attraction. But I don't see how one can just jump straight to romantic. Like, I'm not aesthetically attracted to you. I'm not sensually attracted to you. I'm not platonically attracted to you. I have no emotional attraction to you, but I want to be romantic with you. What, I just want to light candles and hang out? But why do I want to light candles and hang out? Because there's some sort of platonic attraction? Or because there's some sort of sensual attraction? I just don't see, to me, I don't understand how you can just go straight to romantic. But that's just me. Or maybe it's just me. I have no idea. I would think that should make sense to a lot of people. Let's see, where were we at? Let's see, for example, someone who is demisexual, which some say falls under the asexual umbrella, experience sexual attraction only when they have a deep connection to a person. But yeah, you're deeply connected to them and now you start to have this sexual attraction. That makes sense. You have this deep connection via a platonic relationship. So in other words, they might only feel sexually attracted to people they have deep romantic relationships with. So it was platonic and then it got deep romantic? You don't just go straight to deep romantic is my point. It couldn't have been. There was something else that led to this deep romanticness. Okay, so there's a difference between libido, sexual desire, and sexual attraction. So libido, also known as your sex drive, this is about wanting to have sex and experience sexual pleasure and sexual release. For some people, it's a little like wanting to scratch an itch. All right, totally get that. My libido is strong. Sexual desire. This is the desire to have sex, whether it's for pleasure, a personal connection, conception, or something else. Okay, sexual desire. Desire to have sex, whether it's for pleasure, personal connection, conception, or something else. I don't get the conception part. But I totally get the sexual desire. That part is strong in me as well. Sexual attraction. Let's see. This involves finding someone sexually appealing and wanting to have sex with them. Okay. Yeah, get that? Totally have experienced that thousands of times in my life. So damn. I feel all three of those. All right, back to this article. Plenty of people who aren't asexual have a low libido, or they might not desire sex. I've heard of it. Don't really know them on an intimate level or a platonic level, but I've heard of it. Similarly, many asexual people still have a libido and might experience sexual desires. So asexual people might still masturbate or have sex. So again, asexuality doesn't always mean someone doesn't enjoy sex. It just means they don't experience sexual attraction. There are many reasons why an asexual person might want to have sex. For example, to satisfy their libido, to conceive children, to make their partner happy, to experience the physical pleasure of sex, to show and receive affection, and for the sensual pleasure of sex, including touching and cuddling. Of course, some asexual people have little to no sex drive or sexual desire, and that's also okay. Asexuality means different things to different people. All right, for me, researching this just highlights how our sexuality is wrapped up into our identity. I wouldn't be who I am if I didn't experience sexual attraction. I can't imagine my life without that attraction. And a lot of my life experiences and relationships wouldn't exist if it wasn't for my sexual attraction. Whether they ended horribly or not, it's still a part of my story and it still makes up who I am. So, yeah, our sexuality is wrapped up into our identity. On that note, let's take a break.
Still on the search of that one true love? On the limbo in this crazy world of dating, marriage, relationships? Well, listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, your one-stop podcast for everything about relationships.
Welcome back to the GSMC Sex Podcast. Let's continue with Healthline's explanation of what it means to be asexual. So many people falsely think that asexuality is the same thing as celibacy or abstinence. Many people think there is something wrong with asexual people. The world seems to assume that everyone feels sexual attraction, so asexual people might worry that there's something wrong with themselves too. Asexuality isn't a medical concern. It's not something that needs to be fixed. It should go without saying, but being asexual isn't the same thing as experiencing fear of intimacy, experiencing loss of libido, sexual repression, sexual aversion, or sexual dysfunction. Anyone can develop one or more of these conditions, regardless of their sexual orientation. There isn't an underlying cause. As with homosexuality or bisexuality, there's no underlying cause of asexuality. It's just the way someone is. Asexuality isn't genetic, the result of trauma, or caused by anything else. Abstinence is about deciding not to have sex. This is usually temporary. For example, someone may decide to abstain from sex until they get married, or someone might decide to abstain from sex during a difficult period in their life. Celibacy is about deciding to abstain from sex and possibly marriage. This can be religious, cultural, or personal reasons. It's often a lifelong commitment. I don't really. They seem the definitions seem interchangeable to me for abstinence and celibacy, and I have used them interchangeably because I have done both and just chose to use a different word for it. but I think that abstinence can be a lifelong commitment as well. And anyways, let's get back. We're talking about asexuality. So what does this have to do with asexuality? Abstinence and celibacy are choices. Asexuality isn't. That's what this has to do with it. Those are choices. Asexuality isn't. So what's more, asexual people might not actually abstain from sex at all. As mentioned earlier, some asexual people do have sex. Wanting to have sex with someone is different from wanting a romantic relationship with them. Similarly, it's important to remember that sexual attraction isn't the same as romantic attraction. Sexual desire is also different from romantic desires. Okay, I'm going to have to intervene here because it's making me think about the segments that I've done on poly relationships or just non-committal relationships. To me, if a asexual person wants to be romantically involved with a person who's not asexual, then they might have to be in a poly or non-committal type situation, because if you desire to have sex and your partner doesn't, and maybe they do it to please you, which is nice, but for me, I want to have sex with someone who wants to have sex with me. So then maybe those are the situations where you might, be with someone just for the romantic relationship, that platonic, that I don't know, just wanting to be romantic with someone but not actually have sex with them. And then you're with someone else because they give you the sex. And I would think that an asexual person would have to be very understanding and possibly content with being in those type of situations. I don't know. That just made me think of that. Anyways, back to this. Was this Healthline we're reading? So, similarly, it's important to remember that sexual attraction isn't the same as romantic attraction. Sexual desire is also different from romantic desires. One is a desire to have sex, while the other is about desiring a romantic relationship. Many asexual people desire to have romantic relationships. An asexual person might not experience sexual attraction, but they might still experience romantic attraction. An asexual person could be romantically attracted to people of the same gender, people of another gender, or people of multiple genders. Many asexual people want and have romantic relationships. These romantic relationships can be with other asexual people or with people who aren't asexual. Asexual people may engage in sexual intimacy with their partner. As mentioned, some asexual people do have sex because sexual desire is different to sexual attraction. In other words, you might not look at someone and feel the need to have sex with them, but you might still want to have sex with them. So I want to have sex with you, but I don't desire to have sex with you. I don't feel like I need to have sex with you, but I want to have sex with you. Don't really know about that one. Every asexual person is different. Some might be repulsed by sex, some might feel nonchalant about it, and some might enjoy it. Others may prefer non-romantic relationships. Some asexual people aren't interested in romantic relationships. As asexual people experience little to no sexual attraction, a romantic people experience little to no romantic attraction. I don't get that. Some, but not all, asexual people are aromantic. They're saying, but it's one word, aromantic. See, queer platonic is a word that originated in the asexual and aromantic communities. According to Aven, A-V-E-N, a queer platonic relationship is very close to non-romantic relationship. The people in queer platonic relationship are just as committed as those in a romantic relationship. Anybody can have a queer platonic relationship no matter their sexual or romantic orientation. I had met these two gay guys that were in a relationship. They're young, like early 20s, but they were virgins. They don't have sex with each other. I don't even think they have oral with each other. They just pretty much like cuddle and they hang out every single day. They're with each other just as any person or any people in relationships are. They just don't have sex. So to me, that kind of sounds more of like a queer platonic relationship. Asexual people might have experienced sexual attraction in the past, but no longer do. Some people's capacity for attraction can change over time. Just because an asexual person felt sexual attraction before doesn't erase their identity now. It's still valid. Similarly, some people might identify as asexual and later feel that they experience sexual attraction often. This doesn't mean that they were never asexual or that they were wrong to identify as asexual. It can simply be that their sexual orientation changed over time. So I would imagine that feeling sexual attraction and not feeling it at another point in time could be confusing, may even cause identity issues. I mean, I've struggled with identity issues when it comes to abstinence. I've had periods when I chose abstain from sex for 4 years or a year. Then periods when abstaining is the last thing on my mind. And that has caused some identity issues in the past. But through it all, it also helps to identify who I truly am. When it comes to sexuality, you can seriously do some soul searching. Those who embrace the search have a tendency to be firm in their identity. So let's take a break, and when we return, we'll return with how to discover or how to tell if you're asexual.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the GSMC Sex Podcast. I'm your host, Gaelika Brown. So we've been talking about asexuality and being non-binary. How can one know if they are asexual? Time magazine proposes these questions. Do you find other people sexy in a way that makes you feel sexual desire or arousal? Or a way that makes you think sex or sexual touching with that person would be satisfying, regardless of whether you'd actually do it? If you don't feel this with anyone, you may be asexual. Do you develop sexual attraction every once in a while, but don't find its pursuit or satisfaction intrinsically rewarding? Some people would call that asexual. Do you think having sex or the idea of having sex is okay, but not very interesting or important? Could you take it or leave it? And find leaving it more convenient or preferable? Some people would call that asexual. Do you feel sexual attraction sometimes, but only rarely? You may have gray sexual, and you'll have a lot in common with asexual people if you are. Do you sometimes develop sexual attraction when you've already developed other important connections with someone, but never feel sexually attracted to strangers, celebrities, or mere acquaintances? You may be demisexual, and you'll also have a lot in common with asexual people if you are. Jeez, there is a lot to human sexuality. The TrevorProject.org has an informative FAQ section on this topic. So number 1 FAQ. My friends talk about sex all the time, but I don't feel my desire to be with someone in that way. Is it normal to not feel any sexual attraction towards other people? Answer. Yes, it's completely normal to not feel sexual attraction towards other people. Love doesn't have to equal sex. You can have strong, meaningful relationships with friends or partners that don't necessarily involve a sexual connection. In fact, there is a huge spectrum of identities and sexualities out there that can help describe different kinds of attraction. We encourage you to learn more about identities like asexuality, which may help you feel more at ease about not feeling sexually attracted to others. Remember, nothing is set in stone, and you don't have to label yourself with the term unless you're ready. Your feelings may or may not change over time, and that's completely okay. Number 2. I am romantically attracted to boys and girls, but I don't want to be with them physically. Can I be bisexual and asexual? Answer. Absolutely. Because you feel romantically attracted to others, you may feel comfortable using the term romantic instead of sexual, and then adding bi to show that you are attracted to both boys and girls. This creates a term that's commonly used in the asexual and ace community, biromantic. Another term for you to explore could be panromantic, which describes a person who is romantically attracted to others, but their attraction is not limited by the other person's sex or gender. Question 3. I kissed my boyfriend for the first time and it was gross. Does this mean I'm asexual? Answer. Not necessarily. There are a lot of things that make up our identity, and who we are physically and romantically attracted to can be discovered over time in many different ways. It sounds like you are listening to yourself and are in touch with your feelings. That's an awesome first step. What you experience is perfectly normal, even though being grossed out by your first kiss might have been confusing. People who identified as asexual experience little or no sexual attraction to others. Asexual people, or aces, often identify somewhere on the spectrum that includes their emotional, spiritual, and romantic attraction to other people. It might be helpful to think about how you feel about your boyfriend too. How do you feel about him romantically, spiritually, and romantically? Remember, love does not automatically equal sex or being physical. In fact, there are many healthy relationships that don't involve these things. So are you asexual? That's up to you to decide because you know yourself best. You might do some research and find out that asexual is a good way to describe yourself, or you may find another term that fits your feelings better. Give yourself time and space to explore what you are feeling. You're not alone. Question 4. How do I tell my partner or the person I like that I'm asexual? This is a tough question and there isn't an easy answer. Coming out to anyone can be scary, and many people in the ace community face specific risks when coming out, like being rejected by a partner or love interest. Some aces even voice fears of never finding a partner who will accept them for who they are. However, there is a whole community out there that is able to offer support. We recommend checking out AVEN. The Trevor Project also has a great resource for coming out called Coming Out As You Are, available at thetrevorproject.org/you. You deserve love and happiness, and we hope that you will find someone who will love you for the amazing whole person that you are. You should never feel pressured to have sex with someone if you don't want to, no matter how much you like them. If someone doesn't accept you for being asexual, then they might not be the right person for you. All right, last question, 5. People are telling me that Something is wrong with me now that I've come out as asexual. Even worse, some are saying that asexuality doesn't exist. How can I help them understand me? It sounds like you are honestly and bravely sharing your feelings with people you love and depend on, but they aren't hearing, understanding, or validating you. That's really tough, especially because having the support of family and friends can make such a huge difference as we're discovering who we are. We want you to know that being asexual is completely valid and normal, and that you have our full support. It might help to explain to the person in your life that asexuality is a sexual orientation just like being bi, gay, lesbian, pan, or straight. It comes down to how you are attracted to other people. In what ways? Remind them that you can have strong, meaningful relationships with friends or partners, even if you aren't being physical with them. The trevorproject.org also has some resources that you can tap into as well if you're interested. If it wasn't for me hosting this show, there are a variety of sexual topics I probably would have never explored on my own. Some did creep me out, but for the most part, I'm more aware and knowledgeable of this extremely sexual world we live in. And for that, I am grateful for hosting this show. It's been real. I definitely appreciate your time. I thank you for listening to the GSMC Sex Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Normally I say until next time, but there won't be a next time. So, holla. I'm Gaelika Brown.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From sex and relationships to health and wellness, life and happiness, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast.